Hey everyone, Dawn here. I thought it would be a good idea to talk a little bit about broody chickens. We're in January, spring's coming. A lot of people are interested in having chicks or uh, additional chicks if you already have chickens. And a lot of us get them from hatcheries, or some of us hatch our own with broody chickens or with incubators any way we can sometimes. And there's a lot to it, a lot more than I knew when we first got chickens. We got our first chickens as chicks from a hatchery, and we got 17 chicks, and it was quite the experience. I'd done a lot of research beforehand, but that doesn't teach you everything you need to know about raising chickens, and certainly not about how to take care of baby chicks without a broody. And sometimes even with a broody, you need to assist them. So we can talk a little bit about that. We can talk about broody breeds of chickens that are more likely to be broody than not. I only have experience with a few broody hens that we had initially. The most broody hens we've ever had were the dark Cornish chickens. We had 13 of them to begin with. We got them as chicks, and as we raised them up the first year, like half of them went broody. And not all of them stayed broody the whole season. They were just kind of testing the waters. We had one that was broody every year of her life, and sometimes twice in a season. She would hatch out chicks and then she would do it again if we let her. And sometimes we did because she was such a good mama. But so the dark Cornish can be fantastic, but in that same vein, half of them never went broody. So it's kind of luck of the draw. Even when you have a breed that is typically broody, that doesn't mean they'll all be broody. So you have to watch for that. And then, like with the last hatchery chickens that we purchased as chicks, they're called the Ideal 236 breed because they're kind of a mix that they have experimented with and put together. And they were sort of put out there as a broody breed as well. And we've not had one go broody, and we had 17 of those at once. And we've had them for 3 years now. None of them have gone broody. So you have to be careful with that too. We also had cuckoo Morans, fairly broody, good mamas. And even the mixes from them, even the ones that we hatched that were mixes with other breeds, tended to be broody. So that's a strong trait for them. The black Australorps, we had several of those, and she went broody a couple times. So she was a good mama too. So, but you can also get broody hens that are not good mothers, and then you either have to take the chicks away from them or something bad might happen. They might intentionally or unintentionally kill them or harm them somehow. So you have to watch out, especially first time broodies. Sometimes they don't know what to do. They're maybe trying to do the best they can, but they don't know exactly what they're doing yet. So it's good to keep an eye on that. And if you don't want to deal with broody hens, you can also have an incubator if you want to hatch chicks yourself from fertile eggs. We haven't done that yet. We have an incubator, but we haven't had the necessity of doing that yet. But it's definitely an option that we might consider. And the other pretty important thing to mention, and I'm sure most people know this inherently, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. When you hatch chicks yourself, you don't get to choose whether it's a hen or a rooster. When they hatch out, you get what you get. And so one year we had numerous broody hens, and we hatched out dozens of chicks. A full dozen of them were roosters eventually. And then you have to figure out what you're going to do with that. Sometimes it's not a pleasant consideration. And some people don't mind, putting a rooster in a pot, and some people don't want to mess with it. And so that's a lot of times why people go with hatchery stock, not straight run, but get your pullets. Even then, you can still end up with the odd rooster because sexing chicks, day-old chicks, is an art form. I know that they have a lot of experience doing it, but once in a while, we've had it happen twice now, where we either went to like a Tractor Supply, or even one time with a hatchery, we accidentally got a rooster, and then you have to figure out what to do with it because they're not going to take it back. So at one point we had a dozen roosters running around here. So, and we love roosters. I love to have them around. They're great protectors. They're a lot of fun. They're gorgeous usually. Sometimes they're not very nice. You kind of have to, they're a whole thing, to deal with. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. Just know that when you hatch out your own chicks, it's something you're going to have to handle. The first time we hatched chicks out, we didn't get one rooster. It was incredible. I was just like, wow, that was a shock to me that it not one. And then it sort of spoiled me, because then the next time we had so many, I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do here? So anyway, that's just something to think about. We've never purchased chicks from a private individual or a local place. We've always purchased them from either a business like Tractor Supply, or we've ordered them through the mail from a hatchery. And we've had really good luck. Sometimes I've heard horror stories from people where they get the box in the mail and none of the chicks have survived, or something like that. So there is a concern there as well, when you can't just go pick them out yourself. And if you are going to raise them without a broody, you have to make sure and do certain things for their safety and their health that the mama would normally do, like making sure that their vents are clean, their bums, because pasty butt is a thing. You don't want to have to find a chick dead because it got stopped up due to having a sticky vent where it couldn't go to the bathroom. We had that happen with one chick, even though there was a broody involved. They can't always keep track of it either. We try to make sure these days to check every vent of every chick every day. And if there is anything sticky or yucky on there, just gently, very, very gently, wipe it away with warm water, or something. I usually, when they're very small, just use a warm water with a Q-tip, and just very gently, because their vents are very, very tender, very gentle. Just they're babies, so you treat it like a baby's bottom. So that's something to consider. And then obviously they need, after the first day or two, they're going to want fresh water, fresh feed, specifically for chicks. They can't eat what you would feed your layer hens and things like that. They have very specific needs nutritionally, so you want to make sure and they get them what they need that way. They definitely need warmth. They need a heat lamp or some sort of heat source that they can get to stay warm, because they need to be quite a bit warmer than what you would need for yourself, or for like a puppy or a kitten or something like that. They can't regulate their body temperatures at all, and so they need to stay very warm. So we've always used heat lamps, but they make specific heaters just for chicks now that they can get under and things like that, which work really well. So, and then of course you need to make sure and keep them separated from the rest of the flock if you do have other chickens, until they're big enough to integrate usually kind of slowly. You want to integrate them slowly so that they don't get injured or mangled by uh, a rooster that doesn't see them as part of the flock, or the other hens might not see them as part of their group. And so it's a whole process that can it takes time, it takes energy, and if you are letting them live in your home, inside your home while they're babies, a whole lot of cleaning. They are mess makers. So yeah, you need the either wood chips or something that they can that you can clean daily to clean up their little poops and things like that. And just when their feathers are when they are molting constantly, because they molt numerous times as they're growing, because their feathers just constantly need to be bigger and bigger until they reach a certain size. They create a lot of dust and dander and things that you kind of have to keep on top of. It can really make a big mess. So aside from that, they're so much fun. And if you like chickens, which our first flock was, I viewed them as pets that provided us eggs, pets that gave us breakfast or whatever. And we still don't, to this day, we don't butcher chickens at this point. We don't raise meat birds, and we don't have dual purpose birds right now. We have egg layers basically, and they provide manure and things from the garden and like that. So, but aside from that, we haven't had the need at this point, and it's not off the table. It's not out of the question. We have talked about getting meat birds at some point, but so I don't have advice about meat birds per se, about raising them to butcher, but my experience is limited to raising egg layers. And so that's my advice at this point for anybody that is interested in getting chicks and having just the best time raising chickens from chicks. Is just so much fun, and it's a learning experience. It's just a great time, and you do get the benefit, like I said, of eventually of having, because depending on the breed, you might be waiting anywhere. I think the earliest we ever had a girl lay, a pullet lay, is about 17 weeks, and the latest was about 26 weeks. Our Hamburgs were the longest waiting. They were our first flock, and I'm like, oh my God, they're never gonna lay. They're just never gonna lay us an egg. But they did. Of course they did. But yeah, the earliest we've had it happen is about 17 weeks. So depending on the breed, that's something to keep in mind too, depending on what you're looking for there. And these days we try to have breeds that don't lay huge eggs, because I've had several girls that just as pullets, they were laying huge eggs and their reproductive tracts weren't ready for that yet. And I had issues with prolapse, where their vent would prolapse. The inside part would come out a little bit, and then you have to deal with that. And it's not a hard fix, but once it happens to one, it's possible and potentially likely for it to happen to them again, because especially with the ones that lay such really large eggs. I'd much prefer a regular to medium size egg. I'd prefer a smaller egg, honestly, than to have these huge eggs that just cause potential problems. So that's also something to think about when you're deciding on breeds. There are so many fantastic breeds of chickens, and depending on your climate and your area, you can have so many different types of breeds. We stick with the lighter breeds, like smaller, lighter Mediterranean type breeds usually, just because it gets so hot here. the really big chickens don't do well. They suffer in the heat. So we prefer to have a little bit smaller chicken, and it's just worked out. We've tried both, and it just works out a lot better to have for us to have a lighter breed. But and also when you're talking about broody chickens, your climate does come into play about when they might go broody. Usually our girls go broody when it gets a little bit warmer and more humid. The humidity tends to play a part, which was kind of surprising to me. Initially, I didn't realize that, but there is definitely a correlation there between when those hormones kick in for them to go broody, between that and the climate. So just things to think about. And I have quite a bit of experience with it, but I'm sure I haven't covered everything. If anyone has anything to add, or if they have any questions that I might be able to answer, pop them into the comments. See you later.